Have you ever noticed that sometimes we need to watch a video to eat? Seriously, it's not an exaggeration. I know people, I will not say if it is me, that if you do not open YouTube, put a podcast, or let a series rolling in the background, simply, the food does not come down. By the way, if you're watching this video while eating, you've already surrendered, huh? But calm down. The truth is that everyone does it nowadays. And no, you are not weak, nor strange, nor less evolved spiritually. You are normal, only within a completely abnormal society. Now let me ask you a strange question. When was the last time that you were in silence, completely alone, without music, without screen, without conversation, without distraction, and not freaked out a little inside? Dramatic pause. Hard to remember, right? We got so used to occupy each second with stimulus that silence seems a threat. The pause has become an enemy. And what's worse, we call it rest. But is it really so? Is being all the time running away from now, jumping from one video to another, from one app to another, from one tab to another, is rest? Or is it just hiding from something we can't even name? What if I told you that this harmless behavior, open the TikTok just to see a little thing, watch 18 short videos and lose track of time, in fact, follows exactly the same neurological cycle as a chemical addiction? Yes, literally the same brain architecture. But before I get into this deeper conversation, let me tell you a scene that maybe you know well. You wake up. The first thing you do, take the phone. Not because you have something urgent, but because the world is there. And if you don't open Instagram, it looks like you haven't even woken up. Then you go through some funny videos, some boring stories, a bad news, a toxic comparison, and that's it. The day has already started kind of strange, half down, but go around. Go brush your teeth with the phone on the side, change clothes listening to something, eat watching a video, and suddenly you realize that it's been a while since you felt anything real. Everything seems anesthetized. You smile, but it is more reflection than joy. You cry, but it is more exhaustion than emotion. And deep down, there is a silent question that never goes away. Why am I so tired if I did not even do so much? This is the question that begins to stir. Because it comes accompanied by another. Is this what I call routine? Is just a disguised addiction? And before you think, no, addiction is serious, let me tell you a secret. Addiction is not about substance. It's about the function she fulfills in your life. What do you do when you are sad? What do you do when you feel anxiety? When you hit the void? When comes that unbearable loneliness at 3 in the morning? You run to where? Each has its escape valve. There are people who drink. There are people who smoke. But there are also people who run away to porn, for food, for cell phone, for work, pros likes. And sometimes, not to feel, we do everything to fill ourselves. But what you do to fill yourself, it may be exactly what is emptying you. Have you noticed this in some habit? Something that seems harmless, but if you try to stop for a day, makes you restless, angry, disconnected from reality. Maybe it's time to look more honestly. And before I go on, I want to make a little warning. This video is not to judge you, not to call you addicted or no willpower. In fact, it's the opposite. It is to show that even the strongest, disciplined, intelligent, successful people fall into the same invisible holes. Because it's not about strength. It's about understanding. You can only change something when you understand what is controlling you. But you know what's scarier? It's that our modern vices are not treated as vices. They're standardized. You don't have to hide to use it. You don't have to shop around the corner. You don't have to worry about the law. In fact, society even rewards those who are addicted to productivity, performance, appearance. Have you noticed this? If you are addicted to coffee, everyone laughs. If you are addicted to work, they call you example. If you're addicted to cell phones, well, who isn't? But then what happens? You start having anxiety attacks out of nowhere. You lose sleep, feels a strange weight on his chest, becomes irritated, dispersed, emotionally exhausted, goes to the doctor, gets a diagnosis, takes medicine, but no one asks, what are you avoiding feeling all the time? Pause for reflection. Isn't that exactly why we anesthetize so much? Because what we call vice can be just a label that we put on what prevents us from facing what really hurts. And here's a tricky point. Not all addiction is born of pleasure. Many are born of pain. You don't look for a video to eat because you're bored. You seek because you feel an existential discomfort and need to run away from it fast. And the food turned only a disguise. But what if I told you that this discomfort, this agony that appears in silence, is not your enemy? And if it is your invitation to awaken? It seems philosophical, right? But calm down, the scientific part is coming. We will go head over heels in how your brain reacts to pleasure, dopamine, and the reward cycle that holds you without you noticing, in an invisible pattern. But for now, just answer me this. What have you avoided feeling? That answer may seem difficult. It can hurt. But that's exactly where we begin to regain our freedom. When you hear the word vice, what comes to mind? Perhaps a syringe, a bottle, a cigarette hidden in the drawer, that heavy marginal image hidden in the dark. This is how we were taught to recognize a vice, something dirty, dangerous, forbidden, something that only those who have lost control of life do. But what if I told you that this is only the tip of the iceberg? And if the real danger is precisely what seems harmless? Remember when you were a child and they told you that addiction was an irresponsible adult thing? That's right. Hardly knew that one day you would be addicted to open WhatsApp every 30 seconds without having anything new to see. Or scrolling the feed for hours without remembering absolutely nothing of what you saw. Or chewing too fast because you have a vibrating notification in your pocket. What if it's an addiction? Here's the uncomfortable truth. Vice is any behavior that you repeat compulsively, despite knowing it is hurting you. It doesn't matter if it's legal or illegal, whether it's socially accepted or not, whether it's light or heavy. What matters is the effect it has on you. Have you ever wondered why? A person who works too hard can never relax without feeling guilty. That friend who works every day gets in crisis if a week without gym. Do you feel disconnected from yourself if you don't have a headset or an open tab? It's simple. The addiction is not in the object. It is in the emotional function that he fulfills. Let's make a reflection now. Can you be alone with yourself? Can you stop without having to be distracted? Can you eat a meal without being stimulated? Can you just be? Not answer now, all right. But keep these questions with affection, because maybe they show that you do not need to be lost to be addicted. You just need to be anesthetized. Real and relatable examples. There are people addicted to control. There are people addicted to approval. There are people addicted to feel busy all the time because emptiness scares. There are people addicted to please, to help others, because you feel that you are loved only if it is useful. And look how crazy. There are people addicted to sadness. Yes, because pain has become an identity, because joy is scary, because lightness seems dangerous. Have you thought about it? What if your way of being, what you think is your personality, is actually just a defense mechanism addicted? A pattern repeated so many times that it turned you. Perhaps the biggest addiction of our generation is not in drugs, nor in alcohol, but in instant dopamine. In microdoses of superficial pleasure that serve to cover existential holes deeper and deeper. We get addicted to likes, scroll infinite, feeling of doing something, notifications, progress visible, even if useless. But inside, the soul remains stagnant. Do you know why? Because our brain was programmed to seek quick rewards. Back in cave times, it made sense. Food, shelter, survival. Everything was immediate, or you were dead. But today, we still have the same brain, only living in a world that has learned to exploit this weakness. Every application, every advertisement, every behavior addiction is designed to play with your reward system. Did you know that the endless social media feed was inspired by casino slot machines? The logic is the same. You roll and you can win a reward, a nice image, a funny video, a notification, a compliment. You just never know when. And that activates a mechanism called intermittent booster, the same one used to train rats in the lab. Yes, we are all being conditioned like mice in a digital experiment, only that, Instead of cheese, we get a crotita. Do you feel in control, or do you feel that something invisible has already taken control of you? Maybe you think you're choosing, but is it not the algorithm that's choosing for you? Do you still remember what it is to feel bored without panicking? Do you still know what it is to be present without having to stimulate yourself? It's not about technology being bad, nor about pleasure being wrong. It's about consciousness. Is it about you looking inside and asking, this thing I do here every day, does it feed me or consume me? Do I get close to me or disconnect me? I do it because I choose or because I can't stop. And here begins the deeper path. Because if every addiction is an attempt to escape from pain, the following question is inevitable. What exactly is hurting so much inside of us? Let's talk about the invisible root behind most vices, the unresolved emotional emptiness. But before that, pause. Breathe. Close your eyes for 10 seconds if you can, and ask yourself honestly, what have I been running away from, disguised as productivity, distraction, or fun? Have you ever felt that heavy silence? The one who is not peace is absence. Absence of purpose, of direction, of meaning. It's like being surrounded by people, but feeling invisible. How to laugh, and at the same time feel a knot in your chest that you don't even know where it comes from. How to wake up and think, what for? This is the void. And you know what's more cruel? We spend our lives trying to plug this hole, but the more we hit it, the more it screams. Imagine that your soul is an old house. Deep down, there's a locked room. You know it's there, but avoid it. Then you fill the other rooms with beautiful things. He buys carpets, hangs pictures, lights scented candles. But deep down, he knows that there is a strange smell coming from the room closed. An air, still, humidity, emotional dust. And as long as you don't open that door, the rest of the house will never be truly at peace. This locked room is what many psychologists call the primary emotional wound. Usually, it is born in childhood. Perhaps you have not been seen. Perhaps you have been loved with conditions. Maybe you have learned that you need to be good, be strong, be perfect to deserve affection. And then, the child you were began to hide parts of yourself to fit in the world. You started to swallow tears, to suppress anger, to silence the pain, and this created a void. Have you ever wondered what would happen if you stopped everything? If I had no more stimuli, goals, likes, distractions, what would be left? Silence, boredom, or pain. Because sometimes the emptiness we feel is not the absence of something. It is the presence of something old that we tried to forget. And this is where the vices come in as anesthesia. The addiction is not the problem. He is the solution that you have found, even if temporary, not to feel all this. You eat compulsively, not because you love chocolate, but because you need to shut up an inner cry that you don't even know where it comes from. You live busy, not because you love productivity, but because the silence reminds you that you have something broken inside. You scroll the screen for hours, not because the content is so amazing, but because your mind needs constant noise to not hear the emptiness. What if I told you that addiction is a desperate attempt of your soul not to die suffocated? Because at the bottom, what you want is not substance, behavior, or routine. It is the relief that it brings. It is the emotional lap that you did not have. It's the peace that never came. It's the love you tried to earn and get tired of waiting for. You're not weak. You're human. And the emptiness you feel is not a sign of failure. It's a sign that there is something in you asking for healing. Perhaps you have lived so long in the automatic, in the external, in the noise, that you have forgotten what it is to simply be with yourself without fear. Now ask yourself, what emotions have I been avoiding for years? What did I never allow myself to feel until the end? What old pain am I carrying as if it were normal? And more importantly, is this emptiness really mine, or was it inherited from someone? Many emotional voids we feel today were not born in us. They are familiar patterns. They are inherited silences. They are traumas that have never been healed, only generation after generation. Perhaps his grandmother also kept quiet. Perhaps his father also sought distraction. Perhaps his mother also anesthetized herself with what she could. And you have learned without realizing. But if this emptiness has come to you, perhaps you will be the one who will have the chance to break the cycle. Addiction is the shell. The void is the wound. But the wound can be a passage. Because behind what hurts, there is something precious waiting to be seen. Pain is an invitation. Do you accept? Have you stopped to think why it is so easy to fall and so difficult to leave? You say, it's only the last time. Just 5 minutes more. The second I stop. And when you see, it's gone. And the worst, you don't feel any real pleasure anymore. Just a kind of relief from not being in abstinence. Have you noticed that? But calm down. This is not your weakness. It's your brain working exactly as it was designed. And when you understand how it works, you stop fighting with it and start playing with strategy. Let's get into the mind now. There is a little word that governs almost everything you do without noticing. Dopamine. But attention, dopamine is not the molecule of pleasure. It's the molecule of desire. It doesn't reward you for doing something good. It pushes you to do it again and again. It's like a dog jumping desperate saying, go there, go there, go there, go there. She doesn't care if it makes you good or bad. She just wants repetition. Let's draw this cycle with a metaphor. 1, you feel boredom or discomfort. 2, your brain cries out, I want dopamine. 3, you click, eat, watch, buy, roll, anything that gives you stimulus. 4, dopamine shoots and you feel that little high. 5, then a sharp fall. 6, the discomfort returns. 7, your brain screams even louder, I want more. 8, you repeat the behavior. 9, but now you need a bigger stimulus to have the same effect. Result, you're stuck, not because it's weak, but because your brain has become accustomed to the peak. It is like a palate addicted to sugar. After a while, a fruit no longer tastes of anything. Name it, neural tolerance. The more you use easy dopamine, the more your brain shuts down receptors. Why? To protect yourself from overloading. That is, the more you exaggerate, the less pleasure you feel with it. And here is the biggest blow of all. You are no longer seeking pleasure. You are trying to avoid the discomfort of not having dopamine. You are no longer the bounty hunter. You have become a slave to momentary relief. Now comes an annoying question. Do you still choose what you do? Or has your mind created such an automatic habit that you are just reacting? What if you are not addicted to pleasure itself, but addicted to escape boredom? Practical example. You're sitting. Nothing too much is happening. Your brain, bored, asks, where is that quick dose of dopamine? You take the phone. It rolls. Click. Watch. It gives that micro pleasure. But then boredom comes back even stronger. Why? Because now your brain associates being at peace with absence of pleasure. You start to confuse tranquility with emptiness. You start to feel that if you are not stimulated, you are wasting time. Consequence of this? You can't read a book for 10 minutes. You can't walk the streets without a podcast. You can't eat lunch without a video. Cannot stay 5 minutes without picking up the phone, because the brain does not want silence, wants peak. But the more peak, deeper is the valley after. It's like an abusive relationship. At first, it gives you everything. It excites you, distracts you, comforts you. But then, it consumes you. And even so, you come back. Because deep down, you are afraid of the emptiness that comes when you leave. But what if you could hack this cycle? What if there was a way to replace cheap dopamine with deep dopamine? Because the truth is, you don't need to get rid of dopamine. You need to re-educate it. You need to teach your brain to fall in love again with things that require time, presence, depth. And that's our next step. It's not about stopping. It's about trading. Have you tried to stop? Stop rolling the feed. Stop watching it. Stop repeating the same behavior that empties you in the background. You tried. And in the first minutes, it seemed possible. But then came that strange feeling, a void, an anxiety in the body, an almost physical desire to return. Why? Because you did not fill the space that remained. This is what no one tells you. It's not enough to get rid of a habit. You need to replace it. The human mind does not deal well with vacuum. Everything you take away needs to be exchanged for something. Have you ever heard of the garden metaphor? Imagine that your mind is a garden. If you just pluck the weed, but does not plant anything in place, you know what happens? It comes back, or worse, it grows even stronger. But if, in its place, you plant something healthy, beautiful, with strong roots, there is no room for weed to come back. The question was never just stop. The question is, with what will you fill this space? You do not conquer an addiction by fighting it directly. You win by putting something stronger in place. Something that occupies your time, your focus, your energy, and your dopamine, but constructively. How to do this in practice? Let's go for parts. You are addicted to fast dopamine, right? So your brain is accustomed to instant reward, easy and constant. How to re-educate it? With gradual replacements. And it is not any replacement. They need to be satisfactory, even if to a lesser degree, accessible at the moment of impulse, and repeated enough to become habit. Practical examples. When you feel like rolling Instagram for 30 minutes, switch to 10 minutes of walking listening to instrumental music. When you feel like opening that automatic game, exchange for a mental game, such as online chess or Sudoku. When the sugar craving hits, trade for cinnamon fruit and a glass of cold water. When you want to watch porn, get up, go to the window, breathe. If you can, do 20 push-ups, or call someone, or write on paper, what am I really feeling now? You see, it's not about doing right or wrong. It's about making something possible in that moment. The big deal here is that you need to create small repeat wins. It trains the brain to feel proud of itself. And you know what's amazing? Pride generates dopamine, but it's a sustainable dopamine associated with identity. You start to see yourself as someone who has self-control, someone who takes care of himself, and over time it becomes more pleasurable than escape. At first, changing the habit will seem like a useless effort. Your brain will complain. This is not funny. Only 10 minutes? That gives me nothing. But that's just the chemical memory of cheap dopamine talking. If you can hold out for 10 minutes, you've already won the first round. And with every little change, you plant something new in your mental garden. Be strategic, not heroic. Many people try to overcome their addiction with heroism. They want to quit all at once, become a monk the next day. But vice is not defeated with bravery. If you win with structure, create a list of practical substitutions. Have it visible. Make tools accessible. Sneakers in sight, book at the head. Cut fruit in the fridge. Break alarm. Your environment needs to work in your favor. If you're surrounded by temptations, it's not about willpower, it's about smart prevention. And here comes the most important question. What are you really looking for when you repeat this addiction? Comfort, validation, avoid boredom, silence emotional pain. If you understand this, you will find that addiction was never the real problem. It was an attempt at a solution. Clumsy, dysfunctional, but human. But there is an even deeper way to overcome addiction, not just by replacing behavior, but by overflowing your mind with something so powerful, so inspiring, that addiction simply no longer fits inside you. Let's talk about how to turn negative obsession into constructive obsession. Because sometimes what you need is not less desire, it is to want something greater. Have you ever noticed how the mind clings to something? No matter what it is, an idea, a pain, a fear, a person, or a habit, it needs a gravitational center, a core around which everything revolves. If you do not consciously choose this center, it chooses for you, and usually choose the easiest, most available, most immediate. That's why so many people get lost in addictions, because addiction turns this center. It turns the axis around which boredom, anxiety, loneliness, frustration, impulse revolves. But what if you could choose another center? Every human being needs an obsession. This may seem strong, but it is true. Obsession, when well directed, is the engine of great transformations. It is she who makes someone wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning to train. That makes another spend nights on the ground writing a book, which moves people to build something from scratch with their own dreams and scars. Obsession can destroy, but it can also save. The key is simple: redirect. What is stronger, your pain or your purpose? Because addiction will try to pull you back. He knows your mental shortcuts. He knows how to disguise himself as comfort. But if you are in love with something greater, if there is within you a vision so strong, so real, so urgent, that just thinking about it you feel a shiver in the spine, then, my friend, addiction loses power. Not because it has disappeared, but because it has become small before its greatness. How to find this greater obsession? You do not need to have everything defined now. But you can start by asking a simple question. If I wasn't stuck to this addiction, what would I be building? And don't come up with nothing, because you know. You feel it. Deep down, you have a dormant will, a talent neglected, a project shelved, a version of you that cries out for attention. Maybe you're afraid you won't be able to, or you think it's too late, or it's too late. But no addiction is stronger than a soul who decided to return home. Obsessing is magnetizing the mind itself. When you are occupied with something that excites you, challenges you, makes you grow, the dopamine begins to come from evolution, not distraction. And that changes everything. Your brain gradually begins to associate pleasure with movement, with effort rewarded, with progress. And the more you feed it, the more the nervous system is regulated, the more self-esteem grows, and the less addiction makes sense. Real examples. A boy addicted to porn decided to build a body that he would be proud to show himself. He entered the gym. At first I hated it, but when you realize that you are becoming a stronger, more focused man, the urge for porn just started to lose its force. Not because he won the temptation, but because he had found something more worthy of your attention. A girl who felt addicted to rolling her phone without stopping decided to create a YouTube channel on mental health. Today, she still uses the cell phone, but as a tool of expression, not escape. A man, after years addicted to alcohol, began to channel his energy to learn cooking. Cooking became his therapy, and now he meets with friends, not in bars, but at home, creating recipes, celebrating life consciously. All of them had one thing in common. They did not eliminate the desire. They redirected. But what if I still do not know what moves me? That's fine. Sometimes what's missing is not a big purpose. It's just a small beginning. Don't think of obsession as something epic right off the bat. Think of something that intrigues you, something that awakens a light. What if? Something you did as a child and left behind. Start small, but start with soul. The obsession doesn't have to come ready. It grows as you invest in it. When you are tired of fighting against the same cycle, when you are tired of being disappointed with yourself, when you realize that the problem is not lack of willpower, but lack of direction, remember, you can choose to fall in love with something bigger, and that passion can change everything. Let's explore a simple but powerful technique that helps you to divert your thoughts from addiction, not by force, but by emotion. A mental trick that anyone can use, but that few know. Have you tried? Just not think of something? I will not open the application. I'm not going to watch that video. I'm not going to eat that now. I'm not going to surrender. And what happens? It takes up even more space in your head. It's like saying, don't think about a pink elephant. And what do you immediately visualize? Yes, the fucking elephant. The truth is that the mind doesn't understand no. It needs something to go to, not just run away. And that's where the mental redirection technique comes in. Your brain needs an emotional B plan. See, most relapses happen in the first seconds of the impulse. It is that micro moment, a spark between the will and the action. If in this interval you have something emotionally strong enough to hold on, something that rescues a memory, a feeling, a purpose, you can break the cycle, not by willpower, but by emotional substitution. It works like this. You identify which is your trigger, and create an alternative emotional anchor, something that transports you immediately to a sense of peace, pride, or genuine joy. It may be the image of your ideal self in 1 year, a memory of a time when you felt strong, whole, at peace, the vision of a person you love and want to honor with your choices, the reminder of what it's like to wake up the next day without guilt, without weight, just with relief. You train that before the crisis. So when it comes, you don't have to improvise. Imagine this scene. You're about to give in. The mouse has already gone to the shortcut. The mind begins to justify. Only today. You deserve it. It will relieve. But then you stop. Close your eyes. And remember the day you ran to the top of that mountain with your heart pounding and your chest full of pride. Remember the smile of your son saying, "You are my hero." Remember the feeling of ending a whole day without giving in and sleep light. This memory, this image, this emotion rescues you. You didn't beat the impulse by the intellect. You beat it by the emotional connection. Why does this work? Because addiction is not logical, it's emotional. So, the output also needs to be emotional. It is no use arguing with the impulse. You need to replace it with a stronger, truer, more your own emotion. This is mental redirection. It's like changing the train track before it gains speed. Let's go now for a practical exercise. Stop now, yes, right now, and think. What memory reminds me of who I want to become? Visualize in detail. Where are you? What are you feeling? What expression do you have on your face? Which sound is in the background? What smell is in the air? The more vivid, the more powerful this anchor will be. Now imagine putting that image in a mental frame, as if it were a photograph that you can access with one click. This will be your tool, your bypass, your shield. At every push, you have a choice. Give in or connect with your truth. I'm not saying it's easy, but I'm saying it's possible. And the more often you do this, the more your brain understands that there are new paths. And the more he goes down that path, the less the old makes sense. So next time the vice whispers, remember, you don't have to fight. You just need to remember what really matters. The person you want to be. The life that still awaits you on the other side of choice. Let's dive into one of the deepest causes of addictions, mental health. Because sometimes addiction is not the enemy. It is a symptom of something much quieter, something that needs welcome, not punishment. Have you ever stopped to think that addiction is often just the tip of the iceberg? Not the problem itself, but the silent cry of something much bigger, something that we feel inside, but do not know how to name right. Is the addiction, deep down, just a way to escape? Escape from what? From fear that does not want to shut up? From loneliness that squeezes the chest? Of the anxiety that takes sleep? Of that critical voice that never stops speaking? Addiction appears as a quick relief, a temporary escape that smooths the mind, even if only for an instant. And so often we cannot just stop, because we are trying to put out the fire, but without looking at the spark that started it all. Look inside. When was the last time you really allowed yourself to feel? Feel everything, the sadness, the anger, the tiredness, the emptiness, or are you always running away? With a scroll, a click, a dose, a match, a video. What is the cost of that to you? Mental health is not luxury, it's foundation. When your mind is weakened, when the internal dialogue is hostile, when the emotions are stuck, it is as if your brain is asking for help. And unknowingly, you answer this call with behaviors that relieve pain, even if they are temporary and harmful. But there is a way. Have you ever heard of gratitude? Simple but powerful. Have you ever thought about talking to someone who listens without judging? And what about physical practice? Not only for the body but for the brain, which releases neurotransmitters of well-being. Or meditation. That pause that seems simple, but it opens space for calm to grow. Ask yourself, what are you avoiding feeling today? And what could happen if you finally let yourself feel? It's not easy, it never is, but it's liberating. And that freedom, that peace, is the basis for any real transformation to happen. So, here's an invitation. Before you seek control or willpower, look at your mental health like a gardener. Water, protect, cultivate, and let vice, or what you call vice, be only a sign, an invitation to greater care. Have you ever tried something to take care of your mind? What worked? What didn't work? Tell us, because this dialogue is part of the cure. Let's explore now a powerful theme that changes everything: the transformation of personal identity. How to change what you believe about yourself can be the key point to overcome any addiction. But first, take a deep breath. You are doing well. In this journey, you are not alone. Have you ever stopped to think that the way you see yourself may be shaping, without you realizing it, all your choices? Who do you say you are when you're alone, when no one is looking? When does that hard will to resist beat? Do you see yourself as someone who cannot control? As someone who always gives in? As someone who is hostage of that impulse? If so, stop for a moment and think. Is this identity helping you or holding you back? Because that's how it works. Our mind, our brain, our soul, they connect deeply with the story we tell ourselves. If you believe that you are an addict, a weak or incapable, this belief acts as a self-fulfilling prophecy. It creates pathways in the brain, automatic habits, conditioned responses. But what if you could change that story and start seeing yourself as someone who has control, someone who makes conscious choices, someone who respects and honors his own body and mind? Identity is like an invisible engine. It can either propel forward or lock in the same place. And the good news is that identity is not fixed. It is fluid, malleable, and can be transformed with practice. How to do this? Start by asking yourself every time you feel like giving in, what kind of person would make that choice now? What person do I want to be in 6 months? Is this action aligned with who I am? And over time, you start to respond with more confidence. Think of a seed. If you plant the seed of, I am strong, I am capable, I respect myself, you will water this seed every day with actions, thoughts, and choices. And soon it becomes a strong tree that sustains all its transformation. Real example. Many people who overcome vices report that the turning point happened at the moment they decided, I am no longer that person. I deserve to live differently. I can change my story. This change of identity creates a domino effect on mind, body, and soul. And here's a challenge. Today, choose a statement that strengthens you. Repeat for yourself, aloud or mentally, whenever the doubt strikes. It can be something simple, like, I am stronger than the momentary will. I own my choices. I deserve peace and freedom. Feel these words. Let them penetrate your being. Imagine, if a month from now you look back and recognize that you have become someone different, how would this person be? What would they do differently? How would she feel? Start building that version of yourself today. And you? What identity do you want to assume? What story do you want to tell yourself? In this next point, we will talk about something that many people ignore, but which may be the decisive factor: the transforming force of relationships and emotional motivation. Prepare to understand how love and connection can be the most powerful fuel in your journey. Love to transform. The power of relationships in overcoming addiction. Have you noticed how the people around us can profoundly influence our decisions? How can the right company be the difference between giving up and persisting? When we talk about addiction, we often think that the battle is only internal, people. But isn't there a component that is beyond our control, something greater that connects us and strengthens us? Think, who are the people you value most? Who makes your heart beat stronger? Who inspires you to be better even when everything seems difficult? True relationships have this power. They pull us out of the dark, remind us of our worth, our ability. In the context of addiction, the motivation to change often comes from this deep desire to be someone worthy of true love. Not that superficial or fleeting love, but the love that sees us whole, with flaws and virtues, and chooses to stay. And why does it matter? Because when you are emotionally connected to someone, your motivation is no longer just a matter of willpower. It becomes a mission, a promise. Imagine the following scenario. You are trying to overcome an addiction. In the middle of the way, there is a doubt, the will to give up. But then you remember that special person. From the conversation you had, from the look of hope that she laid on you, and by her, you find strength to continue. Have you ever felt something like this? An almost magical desire to be better, not only for yourself, but for someone you love. That is the power of relationships. Healthy relationships work as support. They create a network that holds you back when you stumble. They validate your struggle and celebrate your small victories. They show that you are not alone. But not all relationships have this power. It is important to choose well who is part of your life, who is by your side for interest, who pulls you down, who does not respect your process. Identifying these people and setting boundaries is as essential as cultivating the bonds that strengthen you. Now reflect. Who are the people that motivate you to be your best version? How can you get closer to them? What can you do today to strengthen these bonds? Here's a practical tip. Chat. Share your battles, your victories. Let the right people into your world. And don't be afraid to ask for help. Because in the end, true transformation isn't just individual. It happens in the encounter, in the connection, in love. And now tell me, how many times have you been caught in cycles that seemed to have no end? What inside you is still asking to be looked at more deeply? If something here has touched you, awakened you, or made you rethink, do not let it pass in silence. Enjoy this video, share with those who need to hear this message, and especially leave in the comments which part more talked with your journey. Your experience can be the mirror that someone else needs to wake up to. Remember, change is a process, not an event. Every little choice counts. Until the next video.